Hello, Hypno Junkies. Welcome back to this delightfully cheerful game, Chaos Head Noah Time. We are officially at the point where we are closing in on an ending. We're in the final chapter. I don't have a whole lot more to add. We are on a mission to destroy this Noah thing, to even get an ending at all. Never mind the really good one. I don't have a whole lot of extra thoughts right now. I did have two things I forgot to mention. I'm pretty sure I forgot to mention at the beginning of the last episode. First of all, I know it isn't really relevant anymore, but I'm curious what would have happened if we'd have gone to school after our little incident with Hazuki and with our sword and with that stuff being broadcast on the screen. Just walk into school like a boss and be like, yeah, Esper Boy, what of it? You know, just proving that, oh, actually, you guys shouldn't be making fun of me because I can do stuff. I'd be curious what the students' reaction to that would be. Sort of a moot point, considering I don't think there's going to be school for a little while in the Shibuya area. The other thing I wanted to flag up is I don't think Hazuki, speaking of Hazuki, I don't think she's really the full-on new-gen culprit. Obviously, she was responsible for the second and fifth incidents, but I'm pretty sure that the new-gen culprit is really just the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. I'm pretty sure they're just trying to get something to happen as part of some prophecy or some such, and Hazuki was just one of the many insane cultists going about just bringing that to fruition, so I'm willing to bet certain people did certain things, and maybe we'll get some specifics on that later, especially the crucifixion, because we've been specifically not told who the fourth person on the scene was, but I guess we'll find out. In the meantime, we are on a mission to find Senna's dad. Hatano, I believe, is his name, because he knows where Noah is, so let's see if we can track that bastard down. But first of all, we're back here, and I'm not sure why. Shinzen Station of the Inokashira line. Why are we here? Dunno. Who are we? Not sure. Maybe we're actually Hatano. But we're one stop away from Shibuya, with it taking only about a minute to arrive there by train, assuming there are trains running, which I don't think they are. The station itself was situated within an underground tunnel, resulting in the only natural light being the beams seeping in from the opening at the end of the platform. I'm assuming this is where he is, because I feel like this is where he would be. Due to the earthquake, all of the lights had gone out, enveloping the area in a far thicker darkness than usual. Oh, well, we found you two. Okay, yeah, I was curious when you two were going to show up as well. Carefully supporting Orihara Kazue's body, you mean Kazupi, Aoi Senna set foot onto the platform. Well, I hope these guys don't find Hatano first, because if they do, he's dead. There had been no need to buy a ticket. Not a single staff member was present in the vicinity, and none of the ticket machines were in service. Only a glance was necessary to understand how horribly warped the railway tracks had become. It was no wonder that the trains had suspended operation the day before. Ouchie, wouchie. Oh boy, it's been a while since I did Kazupi's voice, huh? Yeah, and Senna's just grouchy as always. Kazue's left leg was drenched in blood. She had been deeply cut by broken glass during the earthquake. Senna had attempted to staunch the flow of blood with a towel, but the wound was far worse than she had supposed. Basic first aid would not suffice. Gigalomaniacs are unable to use their powers to heal wounds, so we're hearing. To the brain, pain is an inescapable reminder of reality. Thus, Gigalomaniacs cannot form any sort of mutual recognition to the effect of, I'm not wounded, or the injury didn't happen. Human instinct would never allow it. I don't want to walk anymore. Even with Kazui's teary protests, Senna remained wordless. As she marched intently toward Shinzen Station, only one thing held her focus. Something she refused to divert any attention from. When they at last reached the deserted platform, Senna quickly pulled back the arm she had been using to support Kazue. With no strength remaining in one of her legs, Kazue immediately collapsed to the ground. Kazue lifted her gaze in bewilderment, but Senna paid her no mind. Glaring motionlessly at a certain point in the distance, the black-haired girl gritted her teeth. Yes? Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Finally. I finally found you. How do you see them? At the end of her gaze. Oh, You actually have found them. In the dark recesses of the platform sat a lone human figure. I'm hoping that these guys finding him means that our boy Takumi is going to be like, oh, there he is, since he's apparently jacked in everyone's eyeballs. Whoa! That's Senoshan's puppy! Not for long. It was a homeless man, clad in filthy rags. In his hands he held a sign that read, "The hearts of the people face annihilation." Senna slowly approached the man. Who is that message directed toward? Her voice was cold and unfeeling, a tone that could freeze all who came in contact with it. To those who can change negative into positive, it is my last will and testament. Senna. Keeping his head hung low, the homeless man did not even look at his daughter in the eye as he dispassionately spoke her name. Don't say my name like we're family. For the past 6 months, I've only thought of one thing. How I would finally kill you. I thank you for that. Why the hell are you thanking me? For entirely selfish reasons. That perhaps the most I can do to atone is to let you kill me. Those are where my thoughts lie. Say no more. Happy to oblige. Senna real booted her D-sword. The method she had chosen for her father's execution, what else would it be, was death by her D-sword. The simplicity behind it laid the truth bare. The way she killed him did not matter. All that mattered was killing him at all. Meanwhile, somewhere, Takumi is like, wait, no, run, hurry up! I'm sorry. Hatano still refused to raise his head. Why are you apologizing? Because this act will follow you for the rest of your life, and I placed it on you. Patricide carries a great weight. I don't care what happens to me, so long as I can kill you. You killed my mother and sister. That is indeed the truth. And they died in such horrible, horrible ways. Senna could only act calm and collected for so long. As her emotions began to take control, she was seized by a fierce tremble. I never wanted you to see that. No, please disregard what I just said. Why did you do it? To explain the process behind it all would be meaningless. You would not accept it, nor would it change the outcome. Senna thrusted the tip of her D-sword toward Hatano's head. Is this your way of running away again? I was gravely mistaken. There is nothing more I can say. I'm so disappointed in you. What is it you still expect of me? Everything in the world, people included, is an electronic device. You said that yourself, Senna. Yeah, she told that to us too. Senna's shoulders trembled. For nearly 3 years, ever since Hatano had begun the Mana project, the two of them had rarely come into contact. And yet, despite this significant time apart, Hatano had seen right through her. Something which troubled her to no end. Distraught by the sheer discomfort she felt, the wavering of her heart morphed into nothing but pure fury, dispelling any form of reason she had still within her. Don't be deceived, Senna. If we were just electronic devices, then even your hatred toward me will be nothing more than electrical signals. Hatano was just trying to overwhelm me. That was what Senna told herself. Calm down. Your words mean nothing to me. You can't let your actions be ruled by emotions. If you don't maintain control, you'll end up facing contradictions. Reject those words. They're the product of a mental attack. Suspend your judgment. Enough talk! Senna tried to take a stance with her D-sword. But before she could, Hatano suddenly stood up. Kozue watched their exchange with unease, and when she wondered if she should interfere, the pain in her leg forced her to abandon all hope of doing so. She was not sad, but that did not stop her from weeping deep within herself. Hatano took one large step forward. Her response delayed, Senna switched to an offensive position, but in her attempt to brace herself, her feet slipped on the gravel. As her body shook and staggered, her stance began to collapse. Whoops, and then I missed reading it because I clicked too fast. As her body shook and staggered, her stance began to collapse. Any sort of edge her appearance had once held disappeared, and in its place came a great fear. Her hatred toward her father was what had given her the strength to persist, but now that the time had come to face him at last, she found herself deeply afraid. She did not quite understand why that was. All she knew was that the cause lay within the words he had just spoken. Hatano threw himself at her with tremendous speed. Uh-oh. As she fell backwards, ignoring both gravity and centrifugal force alike, she swung her enormous D-sword up from below. Welp, I needed something from him. The blade first carved out the tile of the platform floor, and then it slashed straight through her father's shoulder. It moved with a fluidity akin to a hot knife cutting through butter. Her father's hands sent her flying backwards. Fresh blood burst from her father's injury. His eyes were colored with an expression of deep relief. Senna's teeth sank into her lip. Not even a second later, something pierced her father's chest at lightning speed. Tearing in through his back, it flew straight through the man's chest, very narrowly grazed Senna, and then swiftly disappeared. What? What the? Someone else threw a sword? It wouldn't be us. We're looking for him. Now blood gushed not just from his shoulder, but from his chest as well. The crimson liquid flowed from his wounds, splattered against Senna's cheeks. A bullet? Oh, that could have been it. Having been thrown backward, the moment Senna landed on her rear, her head shot right back up, and she frantically searched for the shooter. Is it Suwa? That sounds like a Suwa. All right, you asshole, what are you doing here? Whoopsie, swing and a miss. A man stood in the crossway between the Shinzen Station tunnel and the tunnel leading to Shibuya Station, the sole place illuminated by a gaping patch of sky above. He was holding a handgun. Well, even then, I'd say that was still pretty darn good for the range I'm at. Senna's father collapsed beside her. Half of his body was already soaked in blood. No. Were you protecting me? So Hatano did that to get Senna out of the way of the bullet? Overcome with disbelief, Senna fixed her gaze on the pool of blood spilling over the tile floor. That's not where you need to be staring. Words breed chaos. Gasping for air, her father weakly spoke. You're much too honest, Senna. When I see you shine so, I'm left fraught with a terrible sadness and overwhelmed with affection. The bullet had been meant for Senna, but Hatano had taken it in her place. She had been trying to take her father's life, but he had given it for her instead. You're kidding me. This is not how Senna wanted this to go. Senna tightened her grip on the D-sword she held in her hand. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's no biggie. The Hatano daddy-daughter duo dying was all part of the plan anyway. An odd noise echoed throughout the platform. a sound Senna instantly recognized as a Noah 2 terminal. Oh. How long has that sound been going on for? Senna would not let it continue. Yeah, she hates those things. The existence of the man who had stepped between her and her father, the man whose gun had prematurely ended their resolution, was something she would not let continue. How dare you get in the way between... When she stood up and fixed her eyes ahead. Someone's invisible, no one's there. Oh. Yeah, these are delusions. You can't believe the things that you're seeing and hearing. The cries of an infant began to resound throughout the dimly lit platform. A sense of strange discomfort grew in her hands. And for some reason she could not comprehend, instead of a sword, she was clutching a decayed, desiccated baby. Yep. That's how them rucksacks do. In an action motivated by reflex, she cast it away from her. You just threw away your sword. Good job. But immediately after she had done so, she realized that child was her own sister. Her sister, whom she had only seen once before long ago. Her sister, whose name she did not know, and whose own mother had devoured her until hardly anything remained. That was the child before her. Large avulsions, where chunks of meat had been bitten free, covered her entire frame. Each tear in her dry skin provided a window to view glistening fragments of white bone, and the pink scraps of flesh adhered to them. Senna began to tremble once more. She couldn't take her eyes off of it. She could not forgive herself for feeling disgust at her own sister, let alone tossing her aside like filth. It was exactly like back then, when she had seen her mother's last moments. Her mother, who had died while ruled completely by madness. Still nestled within her mother's arms, her sister had been shredded to pieces and consumed, left only as a heap of pitiful remains. In response to the sight that she had been forced to witness, rather than sadness or horror, what she had felt was pure, utter revulsion. Remnants of guilt remained lodged deep within her chest. Despising her father was her way of averting her eyes from that emotion. I'm about to get shot. Even though a part of her very much knew that this was an attack brought on by a delusion, it reawakened feelings that had been sealed deep within her heart, leaving her entirely motionless. It was as if her wrists and ankles were bound. I was about to say, are we swapping? We swapping. But Senna was not the only one suffering from such a state. Kazuo was as well. An enormous mirror had materialized in front of the collapsed girl, and within it, a reflection of her with her legs covered in blood asked her a single question. Yeah, the who are you? We remember this. Who are you? Kazuo froze in terror. Large tears began to flow from her eyes. The wounds she wanted to forget, the past she never wanted to remember. Tears of a deep decay began leaking from her heart and mind. She wanted to run away as far as her legs could take her. Desiring nothing more than to look away from the mirror, she wished to turn away. Yet, foregoing her will entirely, her body refused to move. Herself on the other side of the mirror was not shedding even a single tear. Who are you? And that's how you say, who are you in Japanese. Who am I? And likewise. She was collapsing into Gestaltzerfall. That's a new term. Just like when she had lost all words so long ago. Just like when her heart and mind had been broken so long ago. No longer able to see herself, she herself questioned herself in the mirror. She lacked any certainty that it was her own voice. She lacked any certainty that it was her own hairstyle. She lacked any certainty that it was her own nose. She lacked any certainty that it was her own pair of eyes. She lacked any certainty that it was the fullness of her own lips. She lacked any certainty that it was her own shape. She lacked any certainty that it was her own face. You guys are free targets right now. You're Kazupi! That's what Psy'Min was saying earlier. Her shape in the mirror had been on the cusp of dividing infinitely, but the voice that had suddenly burst into her mind had put a stop to it. Well, Takumi found you. I'm Kazupi! I'm Kazupi! Kazupi is Kazupi! She reconfirmed her identity. Kazuo had returned to herself. Cracks ripped through the enormous mirror before her, and then it shattered into pieces. Kazuo searched for the voice of her savior. Yeah, Takumi saw Hatano through Senna's eyes. It was like, I got a book. When her gaze arrived at the ticket gate, she recognized exactly who it was. Her real voice, the one that would have been lost forever, called out to him. Is she going to actually speak for once? I guess she is. Takumi-san! Kazupi called out, not with her inner voice, but with her real voice. I realized that it was the first time I'd ever heard her use it. It was thanks to Kazupi that I'd managed to get over here so quickly. I'd been next to a police box at the top of Dogonzaka when I'd heard her inner voice screaming for help. Ah, okay. Running toward that voice had brought me here. When I got here, I saw Senna and Kazupi, faces pale from being shown a delusion I couldn't see, and Hatano-san, collapsed and covered in blood. I'd found them, but it was too late. Hello, you jerk. Oh man, talk about a stroke of luck. A man with a gun in his hand was standing at the crossing. He twirled and whirled it around his fingers as if he were some sort of gunslinger. Contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing, he had a rucksack on his back. A harsh mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwa Mamoru, a detective from the Tokyo MPD's 1st Investigative Division. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him. And I knew exactly what he'd done. You see, I originally came here to get rid of those annoying-ass Hatanos. But look who decided to crash the party. What's up, Nishija-kun? I really appreciate you tossing yourself into the line of fire like that. I was told to grab you if I ran into you, so here we are. By who? That one's top secret. He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Ban's. But there was one key difference. Detective Ban's smile had always been just an act meant to throw people off or rile them up. When it came to Suwa, however, this sly smile was who he truly was. Hey, asshole! You know where to find Narose? Oh, come on, Nishija-kun! Suwa heaved a sigh, shaking his head in an extremely exaggerated motion. Would it kill you to throw a bit more respect my way? I'm older than you know. You were the one who killed Ban. Yeah, what of it? You're a detective, yet you go as low as to kill people. I don't want to hear that from you of all people, man. I gripped my D-sword tightly, as if I'd ever be polite to a bastard like you. Tisk tisk. You kiss your mother with that mouth? Joke's on you, I don't have a mother. Oh, that's a face! That's not what I expected to come up on my screen. I'll fucking kill you, you virgin piece of shit. Even from this distance, it was clear to see the smile on Suwa's face had disappeared. No, actually, it got much worse. It's still there. I wish it wasn't. Without moving from where he was, he gestured with his free hand like he was trying to shake something off. Takumi-san, look out! You're seeing something we're not, aren't we? Oh, maybe not. An impact followed by pain. It was an all too abrupt sensation. That, or he's holding something that we can't see. Oh, that too. When I looked at my shoulder in surprise, I saw a familiar-looking cross pierced into it. No, it was no cross. It was a stake. A cross-shaped stake from the crucifixion case. It had come at me too fast to see. The area was so dark I hadn't even realized it was flying toward me until it had already hit me. Su'a had thrown it, without moving from his spot. He'd thrown it from that distance with pinpoint accuracy. Again, this guy he's using a rucksack. Maybe he was being just a jokey asshole when he said he was a wizard. He could be a gigalomaniac, we'll see. I cautiously touched the stake. It felt cold and smooth. Was it a delusion? Or was it real? The pain was growing more and more intense. I couldn't put any strength into my hand. I wasn't able to hold on to my D-sword anymore. You know, I think it's time for a reenactment. Su'a raised his voice in an attempt to suppress his rage. I could do with a rerun of the crucifixion case. Now who? Not even a moment later, Su'a was holding even more cross-shaped stakes in his hand. Doing his best to restrain his furious rage that was on the verge of pouring out, he fired off the additional stakes toward Nishiju Takumi. Alright, Dio, settle down. Is this a Senna thing? Yeah, they disregarded all form of drag and the laws of physics altogether, so delusions. As if they possessed wills of their own, they sped intently toward Takumi's arms. 15 had found their mark thus far, not a single one had missed. They had assaulted Takumi's shoulders, upper arms, wrists, palms, hips, thighs, knees, and shins. Blood spilled from every one of his deeply carved wounds. You know, it kind of sucks the fun out of darts when you can't screw up. Su'a already had another stake in his hand, and once again he fired it off just like the others. We keep talking third person. Who are we here? Double Ugga? That's kind of like I'm some all-powerful god or something. Oh? I felt an incredibly strange sensation. He's probably not even listening to me anyway, Su'a thought to himself. Oh! Are we Kazui? Are we Kazupi? Each and every wound carved into my body only made me feel more alive. Su'a hurled yet another stake toward Takumi, who hung his head at the mercy of his attacker. Kazupi is just listening to both of them. Even a normal guy like me can mess around with the same power you freaks have got. All of it can be attributed to the rucksack the man was wearing on his back, a bag housing a Noah 2 terminal within it. With that, he could enjoy Noah 2's power even at a distance. Oh, but down at the bottom it says with this, he could enjoy Noah 2's power even at a distance. He would become an artificial gigalomaniac. He could become an artificial gigalomaniac. That's not me correcting myself, there are two sentences. Su'a found himself wholly bewitched by its power. I feel like we're Kazupi. He was among the fanatics who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teachings. He was among the vanguards who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teachings. Who's the founder going to end up being? Is it Jinichi again? This power is a gift from God. Gives me the strength to fight for what I believe in, for the divine light. Su'a hurled yet another stake. Our boy seems to be taking them. It penetrated the nape of my neck. It penetrated the nape of Takumi's neck. I was racked with extreme pain. Pain that felt as if my entire body was being torn in two. Pain so horrible I felt as if I might go insane. The boiling, ruthless bloodlust simmering in Su'a's heart demanded to know just how much pain the boy could endure. Yeah, I'm thinking we're Kazupi. Springing forth from the torture taking place, death began to rear its head. Springing forth from the torture taking place, he would make death rear its head in him. Yeah, that. I was unable to resist, and while I still managed to put enough force into my legs to stop myself from falling over, Takumi was unable to resist, and while he still managed to avoid falling over, none of that could prevent the hail of stakes coming at me/him. What is this setting up? My chest, my stomach, my toes, my entire body. Takumi's chest, his stomach, his toes, his entire body. With no mercy in sight, stakes both thick and sharp were continually pounded into him. Sua's just having fun. It's like pinning an insect so you can put it up on display. But not some stag beetle or butterfly. Nah, some shitty little dung beetle is more your speed, you little cunt. Language. I couldn't stand for another second. Willpower alone was all that kept me from collapsing. Sua was baffled at what could possibly be keeping him from collapsing. But I was almost at my limit, but he knew the boy was almost at his limit. My field of vision was becoming pixelated. It was hard to see anymore. With eyes as empty as those, he likely couldn't see anymore. If you've got any last words, better make it quick. 20 words or less. Tightly clutching the next stake, Sua was talking to me as if he'd already won. Tightly clutching the next stake, Sua was talking to Takumi as if he'd already won. Is Takumi gonna pull something out of his bag of tricks here? You guys should be tougher than this. You can literally delude things into reality. The next would kill me. Earlier, you called me a virgin piece of shit, right? Aw, did that hurt your feelings? Using his voice in the distance as a guide, I glared in Sua's direction. Though the light in Takumi's eyes was soon to die, he glared in Sua's direction all the same. This one will end it. And may the divine light never save your sorry ass. Wow. You're a mean one. I could sense the air tearing around the stake that Sua had hurled. Sua hurled the stake he had been holding. Haven't you heard? Huh? What was that? The stake would serve as the cross, the messenger bringing both certain death and the promised gospel. Death would come to whoever it struck. Wolverine standing here. It's versions who have the best delusions. Well, he has a bit of a point. Saratan, kill him. A dull thud resounded. Saratan's just going to appear behind him. Or they'll swap places. The stake had deeply penetrated his forehead. An incredible burst of pain exploded within Sua, gushing forth from every part of his body. As if it had been entirely an illusion, the intense pain that had consumed every part of my entire body immediately dissipated. So they switched places, and the text also switched places. Sua let out a mute scream, writhing in agony. I let out a deep breath, then slowly licked my dry lips. Where was the rucksack? It said he was wearing a rucksack. How'd you switch that? An array of cross-shaped stakes penetrated Sua's entire body, and there was a single cross-shaped stake in my hand. When he looked upward, he saw the cross-shaped stake embedded in his own forehead. When I looked upward, I saw the overcast, gloomy sky above. The miracle of resurrection is just a fairy tale, a delusion. What did you do? A delusion synchro. Assimilation unto a delusion, erosion unto the mind. Like two ripples negating one another, like two wavelengths resonating with one another. Entangling together, melting together. A fate which distorts, created by one. A fate which is distorted, created by another. Switching them out, switching them in. There's no way that's possible, Sua thought to himself. Sua's expression laid his thoughts bare. If you're God's vanguard, then crumble away just like the goddamn Messiah himself. Takumi tossed the stake away. Color was quickly fading from Sua's field of vision. Light was quickly fading from his eyes. You gonna scroll back down? And guess what? I don't give a damn about your salvation. Sua could no longer reply. Without falling to the ground, he breathed his final breath. I made my way back to the station. Kazupi's eyes were wide and her mouth hung open. She was completely stunned. Seeing all that must have really surprised her. Her leg was covered in so much blood it was hard to look at. Kazupi, you okay? Without getting up from the ground, she nodded. We haven't heard from Senna in a bit. It didn't look like she was able to stand on her own. Her shimmering eyes looked up at me. Ah, her actual voice. Takumi! Takumi-san, just nowsies! What the heck was that? Kazupi, you're talking out loud. Huh? Whoa! Takumi-san's right! Putting a finger to her lips, she tilted her head in surprise. But she seemed to forget about it pretty quickly after that. Umsies! Is it true that virgins have the Super-Bestest-Best delusions of all time? Is that the thing we need to be focusing on right now? Yeah, the best. Senna once told me ignorance was a sin, but I don't quite agree with that. Not knowing things goes hand in hand with delusions. The less you know, the more your delusions can grow and surge, to the point of infinity, really. Therefore, if you already know and have experienced everything, there'd be nothing left to fantasize about. And if there's one thing virgins definitely lack, it's experience. So it's only making sense that their delusions are the best around. Speaking of Senna, where was she? I searched the dimly lit platform for her. Yeah, no kidding. You've been out for a bit. That rucksack should be dealt with. You should be okay now. She was standing at the edge of the platform, hanging her head, and at her feet was her dad. Yeah, Hatano-san. Could you... No, never mind. I was hoping we could get like a final breath, where's Noah 2, but never mind. Was Hatano Issei, lying in a pool of his own blood. He showed no sign of moving, leading me to believe he was already dead. I was too late. If anyone was going to know where to find Noah 2, it would have been him. Noah 2 is located right next to Shibuya Station. Huh? As if she'd read my mind, with her eyes still aiming down at Hatano-san, at the corpse of her dead father, Senna began to murmur something. When he was on the verge of death, his mind communicated with my own. I was hoping it would be something along those lines, near the east entrance at Shibuya Station, on the rooftop of a now defunct planetarium. On the roof? That's where you'll find Noah 2. Thanks. I wasn't sure if I should have said something to her or just stayed silent. She hated her father, enough to want him dead. And even though her wish had come true, from where I stood, she looked miserable as could be. Damn you! Do you really think protecting me was enough to atone for your sins? Her words were targeted at her father's lifeless corpse, but he said nothing in return, and he never would again. You confessed all your sins to me, and then, just to show it, you killed yourself. I can't forgive you. I can't forgive what you've done. Senna-san! Your heart is crying. You can't lie to me. Kazupi thinks the truth is you didn't want to kill your daddy. It was just as Kazupi said, and with those words, Senna's usual resolute demeanor disappeared. Well, at least you didn't. No patricide for you. Her shoulders trembled. Heartbroken, she fell to her knees. Why couldn't you atone for your sins while you were alive? Why did you leave me all alone? Why? Senna. Nishijo, I beg you. Senna raised her head. The teary expression on her face now was nothing like the stern one she always wore. Destroy Noah too. You guys aren't going to come and help? Well, I guess you're all kind of useless as soon as someone fires up a rucksack. Suffering from a terrible grief, she spoke with the fragility of a girl who had just lost the only family she had left. Given you tried to kill me, I have zero obligation to hear you out. Hey, come on. That was a misunderstanding. Takumi-san! Turning my back towards Senna and Kazupi, I began the march down the tunnel to Shibuya Station. Before me were two giant gaping holes. A deep darkness stretched deep inside both of them. Passing through them would be the quickest way to get to Shibuya Station. For my own goals, and my own goals alone, I'll destroy Noah too, no matter what. I had a feeling Senna said something after that, but I wasn't listening anymore. Alright, well that was a cute little turnaround with killing Sua. But, yeah. We need to be here now. Also, Inohana Kozo. I feel like that name has come up before too. I think Momose mentioned him. A single colossal device held the attention of two men. Inohana Kozo, a member of the House of Representatives, and Kuramochi Yudai, the founder of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. I'm not familiar with that name. Is that another name of Genichis? Another name of Genichis? An ominous hum continually sounded from the device, from Noah 2, beckoning a nod of satisfaction from the both of them. When you broached the topic of killing 5,000 people, I was indeed curious as to what would happen should that end be met. It was quite the backbreaking venture to keep this effort organized, especially when it was imperative for it to remain free from the prying eyes of the Committee of 300. Okay, so these are the three guys we kept seeing in that room then. So Genichi was the one who was standing and talking as we thought. But, Kozo and that other fellow whose name I forget. Those are the other two guys. So basically one of them is from that House of Representatives and the other one is the founder of the Cosmic Church. Your cooperation is much appreciated. Narose gave a very slight bow. However, now that its completion has since been reached with our latest effort, 5,000 has now been a drop in the bucket. Its influence is practically already evident. Our domestication of man has begun. With this, the reality we sought for so long is finally within our grasp. Inohana and Kuramochi looked to one another, exchanging sinister smirks. Narose, meanwhile, simply gazed at them, his face not even so much as twitching. Ah, yes, I must say, Narose, you have quite the taste in how you choose to spend your time. How do you mean? Inohana smiled cruelly, then gestured with his head toward the tableau erected near Noah 2. Is that where, Remy is somewhere around here? That tableau of yours, it brims with such sublime artistry. I would very much enjoy it if you prepared one for me as well. If it is raw materials you require, I shall present you with the finest selections of all who believe in my church. Ever the charitable one, Mr. Kuramochi. It is merely bait. Must be, Remy. Bait, you say? All for the goal of bringing Noah 2 closer to perfection. Well, I suppose we can leave it at that, then. The more pressing matter is our interest in understanding exactly what Noah 2 is capable of. We require a demonstration. Yes, I agree. Go on, show us. Narose lightly shrugged his shoulders, his impassive facial expression remaining ever present. Now then, will this interest you? By the time his words reached their conclusion, the demonstration had already begun. In the blink of an eye, Inohana and Kuramochi came to realize that they were both holding handguns. Neither Noah 2 nor Narose had made a single movement, and yet this miraculous happening had become undeniable reality. Impressive! Yeah, it feels just like the real thing. It's quite reminiscent of a magic trick. I would rather you not group this together with simple magic tricks. Those guns do indeed exist in reality. Their eyes fixated on the handguns within their grasps, Inohana and Kuromochi nodded in satisfaction for a second time. Something tells me they're about to shoot each other. It's quite magnificent. Truly splendid. This is a power to surpass even God himself. I believe I'll keep this gun as a souvenir. Quite the simpletons you are. To the other two men present in the room, Norose's faint whisper was inaudible. Without further delay, let's review the project's roadmap. Our first task shall be the elimination of the Committee of 300. Norose, your hard work shall not go unrewarded. We will establish contact with you once our future endeavors are decided. The two were thoroughly pleased with themselves and the project, and moved to leave the premise with buoyant steps, and yet... that won't be necessary. What? Nani? What do you mean by that? Norose's expression found itself changing for the first time. He narrowed his eyes, slightly raised his jaw, and stared at them from where he stood. His attitude was one of intense scorn, as if he were fiercely looking down on them. No, in truth, he was looking down on them. I will be taking over the project. And not for the sake of tawdry vulgarities as you have so desired, but for loftier, far more noble goals. Norose's tone remained civil and polite. Beginning to understand what exactly he was conveying, the two men naturally became infuriated. Imbecile! Are you betraying us? Are you of the belief you've become God? Hey, you believed you were beyond God a minute ago. The Committee of 300 will not stay silent on this matter. Gentlemen, are you not both waving the flag of rebellion against the Committee of 300, even while being members yourselves? Norose's eyes watched them carefully, and housed within them was raw, unending contempt. His gaze was cold as could be. It was as if he was being forced to study two monoliths of pure rotten filth. His gaze conveyed a very particular meaning, one that revealed he had only been using these two from the very start. Everything has proceeded as I had planned. Even your dying here. I'll have your goddamn head! Foolishness! Kuromochi and Inohana aimed their guns at Norose. They moved to pull the triggers. Yeah, that's going to be unwise. It is not foolishness. They just shot each other. The two guns fired simultaneously. Their roars echoed within the dome. But foreknowledge. And yet, it was not Norose who had fallen, but Inohana and Kuromochi. For some unfathomable reason, they had taken their sights off of Norose right before pulling the triggers, and shot each other instead. Their deaths had been instant. The two compatriots then collapsed. They had put holes into each other's heads, and now they were nothing more than lumps of meat who would never draw breath again. Noah too is mine to handle. You simplistic hedonists did not seem to grasp that notion. Norose's demonstration had been about more than simply showing off guns. Its purpose had been to make the two men mistake each other for Norose and take their own lives in the process. That was the real demonstration. Well, we all saw that coming from a mile away, and with the power of Noah too, it had been beyond trivial to perform. Next, Norose turned toward his tableau. Yeah, what is this? Yep, that's what I figured. Affixed there was the figure of Sakihara Rimi. She had begged Norose to let Nanami go, and thus she had then been taken hostage in her place. Oh, is that how you saved her? Why would he even bother taking that deal? He seemed pretty capable of just keeping both of you. Due possibly to the mental attacks by Nanami, Rimi's energy had long since faded, leaving her head pointed toward the ground as she hung affixed. Yet, when Norose strode toward her, her shoulders ever so slightly trembled. You're such a coward.
汚さずに
Never even getting
そんなことばっかり
your own hands dirty.
あなたこそ
If anyone's a hedonist, it's you. The back of Neurose's hand struck her cheek. Following this, he grabbed Ribby by the jaw and forced her to look at him. Even though nearly all life had left her expression, even as she desperately fought to keep her eyes open, her glare flared with an ardent blaze directed solely at Neurose. Why do you not wish for Nishijo Takemi to save you? Neurose whispered close to her ear. Don't drag him into this. Which him would you be referring to?
二人とも
Both of them. For my purposes, either of them would be satisfactory. The creator of IR2 or his perfect copy. The two of them wield monstrous power. Obtaining a code sample from either one of them will bring Noah 2 one step closer to perfection. And with it, I shall procure a power surpassing even God himself. Remy lowered her eyes in anguish. He fiercely tore away the hand that had been holding her jaw, and as his gaze rose up to Noah 2, a smile formed from the corners of his mouth. Come now, call out his name. Either one will do. I will welcome him with open arms. Rather, that was exactly what he had been waiting for. After surmounting all of Neurose's trials devised specifically for him, Nishijo Takemi would arrive in this very location. Pretty much what's going to happen. We're on our way. We're walking down a tunnel. As I made my way through the dark tunnel, I relied on the red glow of my D-sword to see. My steps naturally became quicker and quicker. I'd never walked on subway tracks at all before. As certain as I was that no trains were coming, the mere possibility had me tense enough that I couldn't keep my head from frantically whipping back and forth. It was a minute-long train ride between Shibuya Station and Shinzen Station. The distance between should have been less than a kilometer. Luckily for me, the tunnel in the Ino-Kashira line didn't have too many cave-ins, so making it to Shibuya Station shouldn't have been the worst thing ever. But something was still weighing on me. Kazubi had warned me about something before we parted ways. Lots of oopy-goopy ploopy heads consciousnesses are in there. Lying in waitsies. Kazubi can't really help, but be really careful, Takemi-san. Oopy-goopy ploopy head consciousnesses. Right. At the very least, I imagined I wasn't going to like those. I was starting to have second thoughts. Fear crept up on me, and I started to feel incredibly alone. Making my way through a pitch-black tunnel all by myself, a tunnel in which something horrifying was apparently waiting for me. How could I not lose my nerve? Whispers in the back of my mind urged me to leave the tunnel this instant, to find a way to Shibuya Station on the surface. But I didn't have that kind of time to lose. So, in order to destroy any remaining fear I had, I thought of Remy's smiling face. I thrusted my D-sword forward to illuminate the tunnel ahead of me. Problem was, its red glow only made my feelings of anxiety and foreboding even worse. Suddenly, something felt off. I felt like I'd caught a glimpse of something strange. Strange enough to make my gaze dart all around to try to find it. 10 meters ahead of me on the track, a small shadow was jutting out. One that hadn't been there a second ago. I squinted. Actually, it wasn't a shadow at all. Standing at about 20 centimeters tall, it was a Saratan figure. This thing seems to be able, I don't think the people who use these devices have fine control over what you do and do not imagine. They just pull out non-specific stuff, like pull out something horrifying, pull out something this person likes, pull out this person's whoever they love the most, whatever. And someone decided they wanted to distract me and they ended up with a Saratan figure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be there. Why would that be in a place like this? It's not. It's a delusion, you moron. I was hit with a sense of whiplash. It was way too out of place. I was in a dim underground tunnel, one for train tracks. I accidentally clicked through that. The general public didn't tend to go into the tunnels themselves, especially this deep. I was right in the center of them. And yet the figure was there anyway. It would be nice if it was part of the CG. And it was the post-awakening version too, my absolute favorite, though her chest was pretty busted up. Wait a second. Was that my figure? The one I dropped during the chaos at Scramble Crossing yesterday? If it was, then how the hell had she ended up here? She was standing perfectly upright, too, with that bewitching smile of hers aimed straight at me. Why are you falling for this? Sarah, how did you... Huh, so that's how you see me, Taki. I heard a voice. The voice I always deluded was talking inside my head. Sarah's voice. Well, it's no real biggie to me. Hee hee. It happened in less than a second, faster than I could even blink. Saratan, you gotta be joking, who had been just a small figure, had instantly transformed into a life-size model. I half joked earlier that this was going to happen and we would just hallucinate a Saratan to come help us out. I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening. I'm pretty sure there's a rucksack fucking with us. Then her smooth, silky, sexy body began to bend and twist just like a real person's. Her hair rustled around and her huge tits jiggled. Was this a delusion? No! Either yours or someone else's. Come on, Taki, let's play! Okay, so someone else's. What the hell? I heard another voice behind me. Whipping my head around in shock, I saw another life-size Saratan standing there. You're gonna keep your patootie well away from Rimichi! But it didn't end there. To my left and to my right. The amount of Saratans were slowly multiplying. They cascaded out from the darkness. Just the sight alone sent a slight chill down my spine. The number of Saratans had to have been at least in the triple digits now. Triple digits?! How do they fit down here? Holy crap. Want to do some real naughty stuff with me? Yes, virgins have the best delusions. Yeah. 100 Saratans crowded around me and spoke in unison. Is this a delusion? I know you wanna, you big dum-dum. Laughing gleefully, one of the Saratans in front of me charged at me. I'm about to get the shit kicked out of me by I mean, let's be fair. This is how our boy wants to go out. You know it, I know it. Laughing gleefully, one of the Saratans in front of me charged at me. Then her slender arms swung her colossal metal bat. Ow. Yeah. The impact was definitely real. My D-sword managed to take the brunt of the blow. It had been way too heavy of a strike. My hand started spasming before going numb. It all hurt like hell. That was when I realized it was all really happening. It wasn't just some delusion, it was reality. They were real booting beings. And every single one of them was out for blood. Just use your spin attack. Uh-oh. If you won't play with me, then I'll blow you sky high! If you're really my waifu, get out of the way! Nopers? Fine. I'd have to brute force my way through. I retightened my grip on my D-sword. The fiery emblem on my D-sword's hilt began to burn. Even more red light began to emanate from the blade. Yeah, there's 100 of them, my boy. I slashed the sword, tearing right through my waifu. The blade was weightless, smooth in how it handled. It drew whatever trajectory I wished it to. Boy, we're lucky we're getting this, because I'm sure they tried to summon someone we love so that we couldn't kill them, but it's like, nah, it's just my figures. I was leaving them to Yua anyway. The blade bit into her shoulder before running through her body in its entirety. There had not been a shred of resistance when it came to rending her flesh and bones. It had hardly taken any strength from me at all. And just blood is just going to go spraying everywhere. Sarah's glamorous body split in half at an angle. As her entrails piled out, she collapsed on the spot. Even her organs had been perfectly reproduced. They glittered and shone with a pink gleam. I averted my eyes. I'm sorry, Sarah. Man, these figures are getting more and more realistic by the day. I was gutting my favorite character with my own 2 hands. As an otaku, this was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. But even still, I couldn't give up here. We are just all kinds of silly right now. Wowzy! So big and strong! That's my Taki! I love you so much when you get like this, Taki. You feel so good, but I want more! Play with me, Taki! So ridiculous. I'm gonna mess you up so good! This is so much fun! Suddenly, each and every one of the Sarahs started speaking independently of one another. The flood of voices threatened to swallow me whole. I have to quit thinking of them as Sarah. That was what I had to tell myself. And so, in order to keep moving forward, I swung my sword at the Sarahs, blocking my path. Yeah, I guess they're not disappearing in bubbles. They're just guts. Out of the way! Charge up your spin move. Rending the darkness with a single horizontal strike, a red beam blazed across the tunnel. Oh, we're getting shot at. Or more knives getting thrown at us. Or is help coming? The 4 Saratans ascending next to each other instantly turned into corpses. Taki! Another one grabbed me from behind. She wrapped her arms around my neck in a chokehold. Her large, supple boobs pressed against my back. Now what you should be focusing on. Get off me! Another Sarah tried to mount my leg, and I quickly punctured her in the face with my D-sword. A cleanly cut and molten hole formed where her smile had used to be. The hell was that? It was hard to breathe, my neck was being constricted. I was on the verge of suffocating. No more fooling around with other girls! Another metal bat was coming right at me. I managed to writhe around enough to change positions, and now my back was facing it. Hopefully that clocked the one that was choking us. I felt Sarah's body shudder, and her grip on my neck weakened. That worked. You're gonna forget all about Rimichi! I shook her off my back, then I whipped around and swiped with my D-sword. Considering how weightless this thing is, we really should be able to deal with close-quarter combat like this. 3 pairs of Saratan's legs came at me. My next strike would sever them at the thighs. And did. The 3 of them plunged into the ground in perfect harmony. I stepped on top of their backs. Oh, I love me a big, strong man! Sarah started winding up her metal bat, and I swung my sword down on her. How many is this now? 8 or 9? Her metal bat met with my D-sword. Only for me to carve straight through it, and straight through the top of her head. No, my D-sword wasn't carving things. More than that, it would have been accurate to say it evaporated anything that crossed with its trajectory. No matter how soft the object, no matter how solid the object. No matter how cold the object, no matter how hard the object. My blade instantaneously boiled and burned away anything that came into contact with it, severing it from its source. Taki! These anime characters who all had the same face, who were all calling my name in unison, who continued to attack me just for the sake of it. It made my hair stand on end. Yeah, again, a month ago, this would have been like his dream way to go. He'd be just like, take me. To try and rile myself up, I let out a huge scream. Then, aiming for the Sarah right in front of me, I plunged my sword straight into her chest. Ah, Taki! Sarah grabbed onto my D-sword. And almost that exact same second, her hands evaporated. I was about to say that shouldn't work. I'm burning up! I'm burning up real bad! Tough. I lost all words. Dread began to climb up from the depths of my body. Chills ran down my back. My entire body stiffened. This wasn't Sarah. Sarah would never have turned against me. Ya big dum-dum, Taki! Ow! That was a kick. I heard the sound of several of my ribs being pulverized. I even felt the bones in my right arm creak, letting out a dull sound as they did. The blow resounded within my body, and then, the sheer impact sent me flying. I smashed into a wall. My head collided directly with it. My vision warped and wavered. Try crossing your arms! Wait, what? She rapidly swung her metal bat down on top of me. I was getting bludgeoned. My left arm was minced from the elbow down. Even the concrete in the wall was dented from the blow. My arm! My arm! Oh, Taki, you know I won't let you get away! Another metal bat swung straight into my leg. All strength left my right hand. I guess if people are watching this because they're real booted, someone just watched a bunch of anime waifus fill up a subway on some camera and they're just like, what the hell? All strength left my right hand. The slightest movement caused a severe pain to scream out in my brain. How are you going to get out of this one? But I ignored it and swung my D-sword. I cleanly severed the oncoming metal bat, but the pain of doing so forced a groan from my mouth. I came within arm's reach of this Sarah in front of me, impaled her torso with my D-sword, and tore my way through her. Yeah, she don't look like she enjoyed that. Her blood splattered onto my hands. Despite being just an anime character, her blood was incredibly warm. My mind went numb. Pain was all that ruled me now. I wanted to lock it all away, but I couldn't. As long as this pain endured, I would never be able to. Copious amounts of clotted blood gushed out of my flattened left hand. And it wasn't easy trying to hold on to the D-sword in my right, either. I thought it was basically weightless. Come on. The pain seemed to reverberate from my very bones. Pain so bad it felt like I was about to pass out. I realized my entire body was soaking with sweat. The droplets stung at my eyes. They're not stopping. My vision was hazy. More and more Sarahs appeared from in front of me. God, this is like Neo versus the Agent Smiths. The sound of their cheerful laughter reverberated deep within my ears, making my very eardrums vibrate. With my injuries, I doubted I'd live for more than a few hours. That thought had suddenly come to me, but it didn't really matter. I was just a delusion anyway. A being that would blink out of existence just as quickly as it blinked in. In the grand scheme of things, my injuries didn't really matter. I just needed to save Remy. I just needed to destroy Noah too. If this body could grant that, then I'd gladly give it all away. So, clear the way. Are we going to cast the delusion spell? Let's stay together forever! Her metal bat came down on me again. I figured I'd be able to avoid it, but the fatigue and pain slowed my reaction considerably. Well then, I was struck right in the temple. I could feel its enormous spikes tearing into my skull. The world shook. My vision went black. Things became even darker than they already had been, and I could no longer see anything at all. I tumbled over, and as I tumbled, my mind went to my right hand. It was exploding with pain, but I was able to reaffirm that my D-sword was still there. I swung out my flattened left hand in an attempt to regain my footing. An exposed bone collided with the ground. Ouch! An impact akin to an electric shock ran through my entire body, causing me to black out for a second, but I regained consciousness soon after. Oh, we're still here. Okay. My vision came back. I started to raise back up. The soles of my feet caught hold of the ground. Using the centrifugal force I'd been blown away with, I charged into the horde of Sennas and swung my right hand. My bones creaked. Are they going to disappear one by one? Freshly spilled blood burst out from the Sarahs. The stench of blood refused to leave my nostrils. Was it my blood? Sarah's blood? Who even knew? This is not where I expected us to end up this episode. It all blended together. All I knew was that I was covered in blood, and that the coat of red staining me had made my vision go blurry. I kept on carving into them. Who even knew just how many I cut down at that point? It sounds like they keep coming. When would it end? In my mind, it was as if she was multiplying infinitely. Sarah clung to my right hand. I swung both her and my D-sword around. But she wouldn't let go. Instead, she bent my arm backward, in a way it really wasn't meant to go. My joint came out of its socket. All strength left my arm. My D-sword hit the ground. Nausea welled up in my stomach. I coughed and sputtered violently. The taste of blood spread through my mouth. I was pretty sure my shattered ribs were puncturing my internal organs. Any and every kind of pain was eating away at my body. I felt like I was going to go insane. But I was holding out hope. I couldn't help but hold out hope. I wanted to be set free, but I knew very well how impossible that was, so my hope was more wishful thinking than anything. You look real sweaty. Want me to wipe you down? With a big grin on her face, Sarah peered at my face, and I drove my foot into her jaw as hard as I could. That's the spirit. I forcibly channeled more strength into my right arm. All sensation in it was going numb. It felt as if my nerves were burning to a crisp. My entire body was boiling. And now, the pain in my bones was rippling, not just through my arm, but through my entire body. I was on the verge of shattering to pieces. Then I heard something that sounded like the growl of a beast. For a moment I wondered whose voice it was, only to realize it was my own. Here we go. The fingers on my right hand faintly shifted. Doesn't sound that much like a beast, but I'll let you have it. I grabbed my D-sword and conjured illusion. That's what you should have done in the first place. I pictured it being bound by a cord, and it instantly became real. The sword was secured to my hand with the cord. I needed to move to get to where Remy was, beyond this darkness. Taki, why don't you want to stay with me? I sputtered out the blood that had gathered in my mouth. I was surrounded by heaps of Sarah corpses lying on the ground. Other Sarahs kicked past them on their way to me, producing ripples in the puddles of blood. I slowly shook my head. Because, Sarah, you're from an anime. Use the same line she used before. I gritted my teeth. You're just an anime character. The very next second, every single Sarah morphed into 2D. Aha! Okay, clever. The ones who were standing became life-size cardboard cutouts. The corpses lying on the ground became covers for body pillows. Ah, this is so much better. They'd all returned home, back to the realm of 2D. Not a single one of them moved anymore. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Don't worry. I'll see you again soon. In something of a moment of silence for the girls, I briefly hung my head over the wreckage. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that the gory, blood-stained Sarah body pillow covers definitely wouldn't sell well. Probably not a whole lot on the resale value there. I was on the brink of passing out, but I managed to stave it off by biting my lip hard. And then I started walking through the dark tunnel once again. And you know what? I think we're going to risk that what's left will fill an episode. So I think we're going to end this on episode 31. We'll see how long it goes. Again, just because an ending is coming doesn't mean it's going to be a very satisfying or long one. We could be ending up on really another bad ending, just slightly less bad than the other one. We got a long ways to go before we get to the good ending, but that'll be the end of the episode. So that ended on a weird note. Of all the weird stuff that's happened in this game so far, having a gang fight with hundreds of Seratans was not something that was on the itinerary, but here we are. On the plus side, we've got body pillows and cardboard cutouts for days. So in the meantime, I will see you in the next episode. Will we save Remy? Hopefully. Probably, maybe. And if not, well, we got all these Sarahs, and that's like almost as good. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. What a weird-ass episode. Bye-bye.